Welcome to today's webinar, How Can We Help? Overview of NAPE's Services and Resources with Megan Pollock. My name is Greg Nagy, and I am from The Ohio State University and provide technical support for the STEM Equity Pipeline project. Before we start the presentation, I would like to go over some housekeeping items for this webinar. This webinar is scheduled to last roughly 1 hour and is being recorded in order to view this presentation in its entirety later. The recorded webinar will be available in the next few days on the napeequity.org website. As you've already found out, you'll be watching the presenter present slides through the Adobe Connect interface while listening to her talk over your computer speakers or your phone. You'll be able to interact using the chat pod. All the participants' microphones and telephones have been automatically muted. You can download resources from the Documents to Download pod. Click the file you want to download, then click the Download Files button. This will open the file as a link in a different tab in your browser. The presenter will answer most questions after the presentation. However, we can take questions at any time. This is how we take questions. At any time during the presentation, you may submit a question by typing your question in the chat pod. We will read and respond to those questions at the end of the presentation. I'd like to start the webinar by introducing Megan Pollock, Director of Professional Development, NAPE. Megan?
Hi everyone, good afternoon. I am glad to be here with you, and I am more excited that you're here with me today. So today we're really going to be talking about some of the things that we have going on at NAPE and really talking about some of the ways that we might be able to help you. And so I hope that you will use this opportunity to engage with me through the chat box. And if there are questions that you don't get answered today, know that we are just an email or a phone call away, and that we will be very glad to answer your questions and help you in any way that we can. And so just a little bit of housekeeping. You are welcome to view any of our archive webinars. We just are wrapping up a series of webinars that have been available to you complimentary, and so you can view those and the entire history of webinars that we have on our website. And again, please chat with me here in the chat box. It's going to move as I change the layout here in just a moment. And I'll try to answer the questions as we go along. And if I miss something, I'll try to capture those as I'm able throughout the hour. And if you'll stick with me to the end, I have a coupon code for you to get 50% off one of our toolkits through our online store. And I do want to remind you that we have 10% off all of our products in our online store through June 30th using the coupon code SUMMER 2017. All right, so let's dive in. So I don't know how well any of you know who we are and what we do, but who we are at NAPE is our primary focus throughout all of the ways that we provide services is that we are aiming to build educators' capacity to implement a variety of effective solutions for increasing student access, educational equity, and ultimately aiming for workforce diversity. And so you'll see these words throughout many of the things that we do is that we're aiming for equity, access, and diversity. And so today, as we're talking, you're going to hear about how are we building educators' capacity, and how do we hope to work with you to build the educator capacity at the institutions that you work and the institutions that you serve. So I'm going to switch layouts here so that you can see a little bit bigger picture here. All right. So again, feel free to chat in the layout, ask me any questions that you have. So it's a big picture of what NAPE does. So the primary service that we provide is professional development, and that's what we're going to spend the majority of our time today talking about, are the services and the resources that we offer to schools and institutions across the country. Another large part of our work is around research and evaluation. And that is a large component of some of the federal grants that we receive and the partnerships that we have and the reports that we put out through some of that work. And then you have probably heard through a lot of the work that we do, the public policy and advocacy work that we participate in. Because as you know, that is a huge part of improving equity, access, and diversity. That if we aren't engaged in public policy, then we aren't going to be able to ensure that strong and diverse workforce that we need. And so the National Summit for Educational Equity really takes a strong focus on this. We meet on Capitol Hill for an entire day, really focusing on engaging with our legislators to understand what is the public policy, what are the public policy pieces that are relevant to our work, and how do we get engaged, and how do we influence those things that are affecting us and affecting our students. And then the fourth component that we will talk a little bit about today, as it does tie into some of the professional development services that we provide, is technical assistance. So those schools and institutions that receive funding through Perkins legislation many times need technical assistance around their accountability measures. And so this is a service that we provide to help them address some of those challenges and needs around meeting those challenges and meeting those measures. And so we want to help equip those educators and help those schools meet those challenges. And we do that by providing consulting services and professional development workshops and resources around meeting those needs. What's really important about our work is that in everything that we do, we have a lens that we look through. And if you're familiar with our work, this is also what we call our culture wheel, and it's essentially our theoretical framework. So it's the work that grounds everything that we do. It's the research that grounds all of the curriculum that we design, all of the resources that we develop. It's sort of the foundation of everything that we do, and it's also the lens that we look through in how we teach. And so, and it's also the core curriculum, the micro-messaging to reach and teach every student curriculum that we've been focusing many efforts on for the last few years. And so I want to just do a quick walkthrough of the lens so that you understand how we focus our efforts and through all the work that we do. And so we start with cultural stereotypes. And so when we work with schools and institutions, one of the most important things that we do is we focus on helping to make the invisible visible. And we take an intersectional approach, and what that means is that we're focusing not just on gender, we're focusing on the needs of students based on gender, race, class, ability, disability, all the intersections of our identity to help meet the needs of them in the classroom. And so while we do have a strong focus on workforce-driven needs, because so much of our funding has been driven by workforce needs, we are really trying to address some of the challenges of just educational equity in the classroom. And so when we go to work with schools, we're helping educators and we're helping institutions understand what are the cultural stereotypes that are playing out in the school? And how do these cultural stereotypes around all of the dimensions of race, gender, class, ability, disability, how are those cultural stereotypes then manifesting in these biases that each and every one of us have? And so we make those biases become these sort of human factors that we all begin to understand and recognize as part of the human condition, and we begin to recognize and own that they are part of us, but we can begin to address those and challenge those by turning that light switch on and recognizing that we can begin to recognize how they happen, and we can begin to recognize ways to mitigate them in our interactions with others. Because those cultural stereotypes that have been so pervasive in our communities, that have been so pervasive in our schools, they begin to create really strong barriers in our classrooms. They create barriers on our schools because those micro messages, those subtle manifestations of those biases in our communication with our students, those messages accumulate. They create barriers. They can either create supports for our students or they can create barriers to success. And so what happens is this accumulation of either an advantage or a disadvantage of students affects their self-efficacy. That's their belief that they can or cannot do a task. And ultimately that affects their behavior. So if students persist with behaviors that reinforce the status quo, that's reinforcing those cultural stereotypes. And it becomes this really vicious cycle of reinforcing these sort of deficit ideologies and reinforcing this idea of like of mentalities of sort of putting people back in buckets. And we're trying to challenge those narratives, and we're trying to challenge those ideologies. And so when we work with educators, we're trying to get them to look at their work through a new lens. We're trying to get them to look at work through a lens that allows them to recognize that cultural stereotypes and bias and micromessaging is affecting their students. It's affecting how they teach. It's affecting the system that they work. It's affecting what's happening in their classroom. And so this is the foundation of all of the work that we do and all of the curriculum that you're going to hear me talk about today. So the next thing that's important to the work that we do is the process that we employ. And so you're going to hear me talk a little bit about this later. This is our program improvement process for equity. And this is based on a Six Sigma process that on how we come into schools and we help them address challenges around targeting some deeply rooted issues that have persisted in the systems, right? And so when we take a systemic approach to addressing some of the numbers that have not budged over time, right? And so we take a data-driven approach. And so in all of the work that we do when we're working with schools and we're working with institutions and when we work with educators on a classroom basis, we encourage them to be scientists in the classroom. We encourage them to be engineer-minded in the classroom. I'm an engineer, so I'm a little biased towards that. So we encourage them to take that sort of process-oriented approach and problem-solving, how to improve their classroom. And so we provide this process and we employ this process in all of our engagements with schools and with educators, and we encourage them to take a data-driven approach and a cyclical approach, and it's an iterative approach to the challenges of improving educational equity. The next thing that's really important about our work is our change model. The first thing that's important is recognizing is that we focus on sort of a three-tiered approach. First is that we believe that when we equip leaders, that change really begins to happen when leaders are equipped with empowered with knowledge, tools, and strategies. And when we say leaders, we don't just mean people who are in positions of power, because leaders come in many shapes and sizes and in different positions. So leaders are the people who have that influence. So in many cases, they are administrators, but in many cases, they aren't. They are the educators who are in positions of influence. They are the educators who have the opportunities to engage so many of their other colleagues. And so when we have the opportunity to equip those leaders first, to kind of begin that many ways kind of a grassroots engagement. So we equip them with that knowledge, with those tools and those strategies. And then sort of the next phase of that is to begin to engage the staff. And so we want to then engage the staff with a common language about educational equity. And then our goal is to encourage discussion. So we want to equip the educators with the tools and strategies. We want to provide a common language for a larger staff to begin talking about them, and then provide the tools for that discussion to continue. And so you'll hear us talk about the tools and the strategies that we've developed through the toolkits, is that they are designed for conversations to continue when we leave. So when we come and do professional development, which is always our goal, we always want to be able to come and do professional development and to provide those services to educators. But if we leave and that conversation ends, we've lost, right? Because we want that conversation to continue. We want that conversation to continue because that's how change happens. And so in all of the new tools that we're developing, you'll find that there are professional learning community guides in the back of the toolkits that are designed to enable this discussion to continue. Because we want that to happen, because that's how that change is going to happen. And so we are working very hard to provide these tools so that we can equip your leaders and that we can engage your staff through the professional development, and that we can provide those tools so that that discussion can continue to happen, and so that the change on your campus and your department and your school can really be realized. So the next thing I want to talk about is, what is it that we actually offer aside from that? And so the key things that we have available to you are we offer professional development workshops, and we offer those in a variety of different ways. Basically, any way that you can slice it, it's available. So we have we have 1 hour workshops to 2-day engagements, right? And so whatever it is that's going to fit your needs, it's something that we can provide to you. We also have comprehensive educational equity programs, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that in greater detail on the next slide. And then in addition, we have virtual workshops and coaching. So virtual workshops and coaching happen in a setting very similar to this, but it's much more interactive. It's not one way. And so we use tools that allow us to engage and interact with one another. We use our learning management system to create a virtual learning community that allow us to work and coach and engage participants in learning and diving deeper in equity topics. In addition, we provide keynote speeches. We have a well of incredible and talented and deeply educated and knowledgeable professionals who are some of the best educational equity professionals in the country, and so those people are available to provide keynote speeches for you and your events in whatever shape that they might be. So we're happy to provide those for you as well. And then online learning, this is pretty new. We have not officially rolled this out yet. We're going to be rolling this out this summer. We have a learning management system that we've been piloting this past spring. And so we have 4 courses that are available on that. And so, and I'll talk a little bit about that in just a minute as well. And so I want to just kind of introduce the curriculum to you here, and then I'm going to talk about those a little bit deeper as I go along. So the first key curricula that we have, the first 2 there are our flagship curricula, so the micromessaging to reach and teach every student, and the program improvement process for equity. Those are both our comprehensive educational equity programs, and they can also be short professional development and shorter professional development engagements, but they are also our flagship programs. So those are the programs that are the foundations to the other curriculum that we offer. The next on the list there is Realizing Potential with Mindset, Explore STEM Careers, Explore Non-Traditional Careers, Ensuring Equity in Problem-Based Learning, Inspiring Courage to Excel Through Self-Efficacy. Those last 2 were just released a couple of months ago. Eliminating Barriers Through Culturally Responsive Pedagogy, that's going to be releasing later this year. And then we also provide curriculum on professional learning communities for educational equity and equipping campus educational equity coaches. And so you'll see some stars flagged on a few of those lines, and that means that we have specific toolkits to those curricula that are available in our online store and with the professional learning community guides like I was talking about. And we'll talk about those in greater detail in just a minute. I want to invite those of you who are online with us, please share your questions with me as we go along. If you have specific questions on how we could help you, please share those in the chat box. I'm happy to answer your questions. All right, so if you get to a place where you are interested in inquiring about professional development, you can go to our website, and there is a drop-down box where you can request professional development. And basically, what a good start is for you to think about who is it that is your audience that you're trying to serve, and what are some of your initial goals that you have on your campus. And then when you call us, we'll work with you to sort of hone your objectives, and then we'll work with you to select the best curriculum that will really begin to suit your needs. And then from there, we'll work to determine the optimal duration. So what's going to best fit your timeline, what's going to best fit your educators' time that they have available, what's going to best fit your budget, and then we can commence planning the PD. So that's really the process. It's not complicated, and it doesn't take that much time. The time that it takes really depends on how much time that you need for your planning and for your what's available on your end, and we'll work as fast as we can on our end to get those things delivered to you as well. And so, and we're available to help you kind of hone those objectives and see what's best for you. And so please don't hesitate to call us to see how we can help you problem solve. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the two comprehensive educational equity programs. And what that means are, so comprehensive educational equity programs means that they are our longer engagements. So these are engagements that take place over a longer period of time, usually a year. In some cases, they are 2 years. It just depends on the school and the amount of time that they have and the amount of time that they need to spread their budget over however many fiscal years that they're trying to spread those expenses. It depends on the availability of the educators and how much time they have to commit to these efforts. And it depends on their goals. It depends on how big their goals are and how much is realistic for them to accomplish. And so when we say comprehensive, it involves a few different parts as well. And so the first that I'm going to talk about is the micromessaging to reach and teach every student academy. Now, again, we offer micromessaging to reach every student as a professional development workshop. So you can have that as a half-day workshop or a one-day workshop. But as an academy, what this provides is 3 to 4 days of in-person workshops. And it's variable in that it can be flexible based on again, the time that you have available on your campus. And then it provides professional learning communities that's engaged for your participants, the time that they have available. And so what we do is we train your leaders. We train your leaders, and then they work with the smaller groups on your campus to engage in deeper learning. And so we have curriculum that's designed to help them engage those groups, and it's step by step. It's really it has clear guidelines on how they can help those groups. And those professional learning communities, what they're designed to do is they're designed to help those smaller communities, first of all, to dive deeper in the content, but most importantly, they're designed to help the educators to move through their action research for equity projects. And the action research for equity projects are projects where they are applying what they're learning in their classroom, and they're testing their knowledge, and they're applying to see how it's benefiting their students, and they're really focusing on student achievement, and they're trying to improve what's happening in their classroom. And we have some evidence that's should be published soon that's showing that this is really benefiting the educators. So the educators who have engaged in the action research for equity projects are more likely to be successful, and the students who participated by educators in these environments are certainly going to benefit as well. And if you're interested in some of the research and the impact from our work, please don't hesitate to contact me, and I can provide those resources and those impact statements and resources to you as well. And the next comprehensive educational equity program that we have available is the Program Improvement Process for Equity. And it's a little bit different because this is really data-driven and it's process-driven. So it's more of a facilitated process where we work with your institution to really address to address your participation and completion goals. And so we start with a data dashboard, and what we do is we work with you to get your numbers from the participation and completion numbers of your students and different programs and pathways, and we create a visual data dashboard that allows you to manipulate the data to create tables and charts, and it helps your educators to independently to decipher across time how their programs have changed and how they can disaggregate and dive down based on gender, race, class, special populations, as much data as you have available, and how we can build those data dashboards. And those data dashboards are really important because it allows buy-in. It allows that understanding of like, wow, these issues that we've been talking about are really happening in my classroom. And this is something that I want to have ownership over and that I can do something about. And then from there, we work through the program improvement process for equity, so this PIPE process that I mentioned, and then we help them to understand what are the root causes for why students don't participate in these non-traditional careers and pathways. And so we go over tons of research and kind of a broad brush scope, and then we help them to begin to dive deeper into the areas where they think that the participation is really addressing their issues. And so what's so important about PIPE is so many schools, when they're trying to address their numbers, they just dive after an issue and they just go straight to an intervention. They just say, okay, we've got to fix this. We're just going to go do this outreach. That's going to help. Well, sometimes it doesn't, and a lot of times it doesn't. And so what PIPE does is it allows you to kind of take a step back, and it allows you to really take a measured approach at this. And so you're doing action research, and that you're taking the data, you're making hypotheses based on your school's data and based on the research on why students don't participate in these pathways. And then from there, you are going to do some surveys, and you're going to go ask the students, or you're going to do some analyses on your campus, and you're going to test those hypotheses, and you're going to determine, are my hypotheses correct? And sometimes your hypotheses aren't correct. And so what you've done there is you've just saved yourself, in many cases, a lot of money. And so instead of diving headfirst into providing this sort of grand intervention, you've been able to guide yourself into another pathway and focus on what's really, really happening on your campus. And so, and then from there, we take that data from sort of the sort of testing the hypotheses, and then we begin to select strategies and interventions that will really begin to address the challenges and the solutions and the goals that we've set for ourselves. And so it's a targeted approach, it's a stepwise approach that allows us to be really intentional and intelligent with the money that we have available to addressing these issues. And so again, it is a facilitated process that allows us to address those challenges. And again, we have some really phenomenal results. The webinar that we did a couple of weeks ago talks about both of these comprehensive educational equity programs and some success points from some engagements from those. And so I encourage you to go back and watch that archived webinar to hear some of those really compelling and beautiful stories of the impact that those programs have had in schools, for schools across the country. All right, so I wanted to introduce you to the online learning system that we have. So we use a really approachable learning management system. It uses a simple WordPress, which is a very common web application, and so it's not super complicated, and so you're able to dive in, and a user interface that people are common, accustomed to using. And so right now we have available 4 courses that they can access, and so what we've been, and we can create a variety of solutions for your schools around this. What we've done so far is that we've been able to create some sort of flipped learning style professional learning community or virtual learning community partnerships with schools and organizations, or in one case a state-wide engagement. And so while we engage with these large groups, or not, they're not that large, but like 20 to 30 people across a broad space, and then they take the course, and then we come together to discuss it and talk about what it means for them. So that's one way to do it. Or the other way to do it is to provide access to your teachers to take the course, and then you could discuss it on your campus as well. And so if you're interested in that, let us know. We don't have this loaded up onto our shopping cart yet. We're still working on getting that integrated into our online system. But if you're interested in that, I invite you to email me, and I'd be happy to provide that information, and you could certainly request that information through our online system, request system as well. And again, the courses are micro-messaging to reach and teach every student, realizing potential with mindset, explore STEM careers, and inspiring courage to excel through self-efficacy. And these courses are designed to take about an hour. They can take longer. Uh, if I suppose if you're really doing them in full reflection, they will take a couple of hours longer, so maybe 2 to 3 hours, and so they're about that long. So we'll say 1 to 3 hours a piece of learning, and they have great reflection, and they're really interactive, and they're great tools for learning. All right, so it's a good time for questions if you have anything. At this point, I was going to step through each of the toolkits that we have and give you a little bit of a description about our toolkits, and I welcome any questions that you have. So please feel free to drop those in. So the Explore STEM Careers was our first toolkit that we have re-released a second edition to it this past year. And so the Explore STEM Careers Toolkit is different from our others in the sense that the activities that are in this toolkit are designed to be more student facing. So they are the book itself is designed for educators. It's designed to help challenge some of those stereotypes that we hold about STEM professionals. It's designed to help educators really think about how do they improve messaging to get students interested in STEM careers, and it has activities to help educators get students interested in STEM careers, and it has the lesson plans available to them to do those activities. And the book that we released this past year, we now have several Spanish translated activities in that toolkit, and so I encourage you to order this toolkit if you're interested in doing some STEM career exploration activities with your student, and if you're interested in learning about ways to challenge some of your own stereotypes about STEM. And again, this is one of it is our oldest toolkit, and it's a toolkit that is it's certainly one of my favorites because it's the first one that I wrote during my graduate program, and as a STEM professional, I think it's incredibly important to begin to challenge so many of these stereotypes. And this is one that's near and dear to my heart because I think that as educators, we have a really cool opportunity to begin to change the narrative and change the stereotypes that exist about STEM professionals. And while there are many things that we can do to increase the participation of women and students of color going into STEM careers, one of the easiest things to do is to kind of challenge those stereotypes. And this is one way to begin doing that. And so this is a great workshop that's available to you. It's good for teachers, it's good for counselors, and it has great activities for student STEM career exploration. The next career-focused toolkit is the Explore Non-Traditional Careers Toolkit. And this toolkit is focused on non-traditional careers, and it has worksheets that help educators begin to think about what are non-traditional careers, and non-traditional careers are any career that one gender represents 25% or less of the population of people in a career. So that means like men in nursing or women in engineering, so they represent both, are less than 15%. Of the people in those careers. I think they're both around 13%. It changes every year a little bit. And so that means that they are underrepresented. They are non-traditional in those pathways. And so we begin to talk about what are the stereotypes that prevent these women going into engineering or men going into nursing, and how do we begin to break down some of those stereotypes and understand those stereotypes and how they affect our students. And so this toolkit is really grounded in our micro messaging framework, and so it's a strong introduction into understanding cultural stereotypes and bias and micro messaging. And so this is a good place to begin with educators who are new to understanding the concepts around non-traditional careers and those key entry points to what's keeping so many students out of these pathways. It's a great workshop for educators. It's a great workshop for, again, counselors and any person who's in a position of advising students, and that means whether they're in the classroom or in the administrative office. The next toolkit is realizing potential with mindset, and this is based on the work that Carol Dweck wrote around growth mindset. And so but it's grounded in equity work. So again, all of our work is grounded in our theoretical framework. If you remember, it's that lens. It's the cultural stereotypes, bias, micromessaging. So it's that loop. So all of our work is grounded in equity and how we can really look at these concepts and integrate them into our work through that lens. And so what's fantastic about this book and what's fantastic about this curriculum and this workshop is that they're really tangible strategies. And so when educators leave this workshop, they are always excited about being able to implement these strategies. And when we come back and work with them after they've engaged these strategies, they have seen marked improvement in their students and the achievement of their students because the strategies that we've been able to get them to engage their students with through the lesson plans, their own self-reflection and understanding how they can change their practice through the lens of educational equity have been really powerful. And so again, this toolkit has lesson plans that are there's one lesson plan in here for a student-facing activity, and that student-facing activity is on brain plasticity. All of the other activities that are in the back are for professional learning community, for professional learning community discussions. And that's the realizing potential with mindset, and this is great for a half day. It's usually best for a full day workshop, but it can be done in a half day. Anything less than it's a little too tight to get all of the content in. Ensuring equity in problem-based learning is a new toolkit, a new curriculum that was just released this past April. And we decided to approach this work because so many people are doing problem-based learning, and there is an incredible opportunity for people who are doing problem-based learning to really take advantage of a few specific measures and make sure that they're addressing a few specific things, and that can improve equity in the classroom. And so the key takeaway in this problem-based learning, ensuring equity in problem-based learning toolkit, is a reflection tool. And so there's tons of literature, and it's not just literature, but it's a guidebook, a toolkit that allows us to work through understanding what makes PBL effective for marginalized students, what makes PBL effective for every student, and how can we understand ways that we can tweak our PBLs to be sure that it's inclusive of every student. And what's also important about this work is understanding that when we do these things, it doesn't just help the marginalized students, it helps all the students. So if you remember, the old quote that the rising tide raises all the boats, this is exactly clear in this work, and understanding that when we do these tiny little tweaks to our problem-based learning activities or our project-based learning activities, we are able to support the success of every student. And so when we wrote this curriculum, we are not positioning ourselves as PBL experts. We are the equity experts. And so what we want to do is we want to work with you all who are doing problem-based learning and doing project-based learning and help you understand ways that we can do these really small adjustments and how you're designing your curriculum and how you're implementing problem-based and project-based learning activities to make sure that you're addressing the needs of every student and making sure that specifically within STEM and career and technical education, those areas where students are underrepresented, that we can engage them and create more inclusive environments and hopefully get them more engaged and participating and completing in those programs. And again, this is best in a full day professional development. It can be done in a half day, anything less, and it's a little hard to do. The next toolkit is Inspiring Courage to Excel Through Self-Efficacy. This is our largest and longest toolkit that we've developed yet. It is one of my favorites in that it is so rich and strategies that really focus on feedback. The feedback mechanisms that we provide in this toolkit are, um, again, they're useful to not only us as educators and how we engage with our students, they're useful to us as humans and how we engage with every other human. And so what's wonderful about understanding self-efficacy and how we can build our students' self-efficacy is that this toolkit also helps us to build our self-efficacy as educators, to build our self-efficacy in many other areas of our life. And one of the key, again, like I said, components is how we provide feedback and how that feedback engages our students and how it changes their mindsets and how it can change their behaviors and their actions. And the activities that we do throughout this toolkit, throughout this workshop, are really, really interesting in the sense of when we do this, I see so many just aha moments of challenging really, really sort of old false ideologies that have been perpetuated through just sort of common narratives that have been stated that weren't true on the literature, and so we're getting to kind of challenge some of those things, and this is an exciting curriculum because again, all of our activities, all of our workshops, all of our work are practical, application-focused, strategy-driven, because what we do not want to happen is anyone to leave one of our professional development workshops and say, well, now what? What am I supposed to do? So they leave with every kind of strategy, practical strategy that they can do, that they can implement, and we want that to happen. We want them to know what they can do the next day to make a difference in their student achievement. And this one does not disappoint. The next resource that we have available are STEM career cards. We have two different kinds. So one, on the bottom you see the kind of spread there. Those are what we call kudos cards. And so they're a series of 5 different messages, and they're designed to be written like notes on, so they're, you write a note to your student. And they're 5 different messages, but they relate things to STEM careers. So for example, one says you are an excellent collaborator, here's how I know, and then it relates collaboration to STEM careers and how STEM careers need collaboration as a skill set. And it says you are super creative, and then it relates that to STEM careers. You learn from your mistakes, and it relates how STEM careers value failure, and that you have to take failure and turn over and over and again for success. And so they're great little tools to write notes to your students. We've had many educators make bulletin boards with them. We've also have had educators put a stamp on them and mail them home, and then when you do that, they go on a fridge, many cases, and those kind of begin to challenge some of the perceptions of parents at times as well. And then we have at the top of the page there the STEM careers make a world of difference kind of checklist. And so these are great tools that if you're trying to engage students in STEM careers, what you can do is you can get this card, and then a lot of times what you can do is on the back side you could put your information, like a sticker for whatever program that you're running, and the other side would provide some good proper messaging and effective messaging on STEM careers, and so those are available to you as well. Okay, so in addition, we have a number of infographic posters that are available on our website. And so these are just a few of them, and most of these include infographics that come from our work, from our toolkits, from our professional development, and some of them are student focused, some of them are more teacher focused, some of them are research driven, and so you can access those again on our website to explore and see what's available to you as well. I do want to remind you that we offer an annual conference. It's called the National Summit for Educational Equity. Our theme this next year is Building Bridges to Strengthen Access, Equity, and Diversity. The dates are April 16th through 19th 2018. It's going to be at the Hilton Crystal City in Arlington, Virginia. And we invite you to consider submitting a proposal to present your work, what you're doing on your campus to improve educational equity. We'll open the call for proposals in the fall, and so consider, again, submitting your work. You know, as you plan your budgets, put it in your budget to come and join us in the DC area. It's if you're interested in learning from other practitioners and researchers and if you're interested in public policy, there is a big arm to the conference around public policy. There's an opportunity for you to learn there as well. And we invite you to join us. It is a conference that I think is really fun because it's on the smaller side, and so you get an opportunity to network and engage and learn from so many different people. And I hope that you'll join us in that conference. Another part of NAPE that is often talked about once you contact us for professional development is about membership. NAPE is a member organization. And when you become a member, you get really significant discounts on our services and our resources. And so you can look at the different types of membership on our website. We have a few different levels of membership. So we have a state level membership, and then we have affiliate level memberships, and then we have an individual membership. And so your school, your organization can join, your state state organization can join, and then you can join. And I think that all of us should have it on our CV that we care about educational equity, and that this is an organization that you want to grow with, and that you want to join this community of professionals and engage and learning with and committing to. And so I hope that you'll consider joining NAPE and join us at the conference and let us know how we can help you as you grow in your career as well. As we close, I want to offer my information to you. You can always contact us through the website. My information is here, mpollock@napequity.org, and we're available to help you in any way that we can. And again, I just invite you to let us help you problem solve as you're planning any of the events or professional development that you need to offer. Let us help you think about that, and let us know how we can help you think about the educational equity issues that you're facing, and how maybe our services and resources can help solve those challenges, or at least begin to address those challenges. Any questions before we wrap up? Before you all sign off, I wanted to let you know that there are a couple of documents that you can download in the lower right corner of the screen. One is on our an overview of our services. One is on our micro-messaging to Reach and Teach Every Student Academy, and the other is on the program improvement process for equity. So both of our comprehensive educational equity programs, and then just a general overview of our services. And I wanted to let you know now that the coupon code for the 50% off one toolkit is 68, as in 68, because today's June 6th, 68 webinar. So if you will use this code when you check out, if you use 68 webinar when you check out, oh, that's really big. Then that will give you 50% off one toolkit. And again, remember that remember that we have the 10% discount that extends through June 30th. The 50% off one item discount will run for 1 week, so you have 1 week to use that discount code. And I'm grateful for your time today. Thank you for joining us. I hope that you will share this information with your colleagues, share this information with your friends, and let people know about our conference and our services and our resources. And again, let us know how we can help. There's some key links on the bottom there that might be useful to you about our newsletter, our membership types and benefits, and how to request professional development, and about our resources. All right. Thank you all so much. I'll stay online if you have questions. Thanks, Wilson. Thanks, Vanessa. Thank you, Lynn.